Hello and welcome to another episode of Atomic Vinyl Reviews. My name is Jacob and today I've got some action figure news. Now, this is nothing new. Probably everyone and their grandmother has already covered these two figures and everyone already knows about them and seen the photos and whatnot, but I thought I, could still talk about my opinions on them and all of that. So, for anyone who's not aware, a couple of days ago, NECA announced two brand new Godzilla figures in their Godzilla line, and that is these two beauties right here, that being the Godzilla 1989 Biollante figure, Godzilla vs. Biollante figure, and the Godzilla 2003 Tokyo SOS figure. And, yeah, let's take a look at these and see what I make of them. So I've just collected a bunch of images of these figures here, so we can take a nice gander at them together. That photo there wasn't of the best quality, but let's start off with the Biollante figure. So the 1989 figure, which is a design which I'm particularly fond of. So, first impressions of this thing. I like it. I like it quite a bit. He's chunky and he's just so much better looking than the previous Heisei Godzilla that NECA released. I'm so happy that they redid a Heisei figure. So this photo in particular, he looks really nice. Now, I've heard people complain a little bit about the face, and the thing about these NECA figures, if I'm entirely honest, is when they first started out, they really half-assed them, like, no question about it. Like, let me just bring in some of my figures here. I've just got them in a nice box, because, how else would you have your NECA figures, am I right? And, geez, yeah, there we go. Exhibit A, the NECA 1984 Godzilla figure, or 1985 for you plebs out there. No, I'm kidding. The 85 cut is pretty good too. Yeah, I don't even want to get into that figure. But yeah, NECA have started off pretty damn weak in their line. They started off with their 2014 Godzilla figures, and those ones were really decent, especially this big chunky boy right here. I'm not a big fan of the 2014 design per se, but this figure, the massive one, yeah, I love it. I love it. And their smaller, the figure that everyone owns, the little 2014 NECA figure, that one's done really well. And, pardon, there's a loud plane going over. I hope that doesn't bother anyone. But yeah, they started off the line pretty well with those, but then they decided to jump into some of their more Godzilla suit versions, such as the 84, like I showed you guys there, and the 90, I think it's 93 figure, 93, and then they repainted that one, or just remolded it in a different plastic to turn it into the 95 Burning Godzilla. Those figures were really disappointing, and I've talked about them a lot in my other videos, so I won't really get into that, but yeah, they started off really just half-assing it. The sculpts were really poor, even though the articulation was okay. The tails were bendy wires, and they were too small and too short, the tails, and the spines were really flimsy and small as well. Then we started to get some improvements with the 54 figure, the NECA 1954 Godzilla. It's not very accurate, but it's a charming figure. He's chunky, and you can tell the person who sculpted him actually tried. They actually put effort in, even though that guy he's kind of like an intermediate figure. His tail was also bendy wire, and his dorsal spines are a little bit small. I'm not that big a fan of those. You could see somebody better at sculpting started working on that figure. We also got the Shin Godzilla figure, which I'm not a fan of either. They made him really ugly. Like, I know Shin Godzilla is kind of meant to be ugly, but I'm a big Shin Godzilla fan, so I love that design. But the NECA version is, not well done. So they had a bad rap with those figures. However, in recent years, they have livened up their figure line. They've changed the boxes. You can see the box in the background here. They've started doing these beautiful poster boxes. And the sculpts starting from maybe like the GMK design, maybe. That one still has issues, but I don't want to get into that. But especially these two figures right here, that being the 64 and the 63, two King Kong versus Godzilla figure right here. These two, you can tell they are actually putting effort into these figures. They're putting effort into these sculpts, and even though I have some nitpicks with these figures, they look a little goofy in some angles, and I'm not too happy about some of the articulation choices and the way it affects the sculpt, all of that sort of stuff like that. Even though they have little nitpicks, the sculpts are so much better, and for the price, maybe not the price here where I live, but for the price if you guys live in the US especially, such a steal. So I've been really happy with that, and these figures, I'm actually really happy with these designs here. So we have, like I said, the 89 here. He looks really good, especially in this picture. You can see they did really well with this sculpting detail. He's got a nice deep sculpt all over his body. His form is very thick and with two C's, just like he was in the film. Now, we do have the Monster Arts version of this guy, which actually might scale pretty close to this guy, because he's the lights, sound, and whatnot version, the slightly larger KKK version of that Monster Arts figure, so that'll be a good comparison. I'll do that when this guy comes out, but so far looking so good. So let's get more in depth into these figures. So we got some more images of these ones here. Here he starts to look a little bit more goofy. You can see, you know, the paintwork is a little bit splotchy here. It's got that sort of typical NECA quality, but still, compared to the earlier stuff, this is really decent. This is, you know, the sculpt seems on par, if not better than, say, like a golden age Bandai vinyl. Like, I don't really even know what the golden age would be, but there are just some Bandai vinyls that really stand out against some others, and they're really decent figures. This one is like, you know, you could tell there's quality put into it. The face, sorry, I'm trying to get him. There we go. Okay, I'll just hold him there. So yeah, the face here looks pretty good. It's, you know, it's not as good, of course, as the Monster Arts. I mean, Yuji Bloody Sakai sculpts the Monster Arts figures, so that's to be expected. Not to mention the price difference. But for a NECA figure, I'm loving this. And just in general, NECA figures, they're slightly bigger than Monster Arts figures. They're more chunky. Whether that's accurate or not, they don't really care, but they still make them a little more chunky. And yeah, I'm just happy with the way they're doing these now. Also, the tail, you can tell, no bendy wire. At least I'm assuming there's no bendy wire. They've pretty much ditched bendy wires for the last couple of figures, so that's been really good. So if the finished product looks anything like this guy, I'm going to be genuinely happy and really excited to try and find this guy. So maybe we could, yeah, see some more pictures of him here. I'm hoping that the teeth on the finished version look okay. Here they're looking sort of very chunky and sort of stuffed together, if that makes sense. Like the Heisei Godzilla's had very sort of, not your typical sort of like very triangular razor sharp teeth. They had more like very aggressive sharp grinding teeth, like many rows of them. I also really like the shape of the hands here. They have a nice, really sharp sculpt, and they look a little less awkward than, say, some of their previous figures. Like even the, like I was pointing out, the 64 and the 62, I believe, or 63. Sorry, so many of these dates. Even they have some sort of slight awkward angles here and there. Like the 64 has just some slight awkwardness, and some is just it's subtle, so I can't even like really pinpoint it. But this one here, they made his ankles really thin for some reason. He's so chunky. He's like the chunkiest Godzilla, but they made his ankle so thin. So it's good to see. It's on the previous picture. So I'm just like jumping from point to point, but it's kind of what I do. And see, they actually made his ankles like the proper thickness, so he's nicely balanced. So this, we've also got the nice long tail of the Heisei Godzilla, which I'm really happy they did. So yeah, I'm super hyped for this one. And if, like we saw the box over here, The box looks so good. We've got that Godzilla vs. Biollante poster. And yeah, I love the new boxes. They're like my favorite figure boxes at the moment. Let's see, do we have... Okay, this is also another cool thing. We get a beam with this guy, and I'm not sure. This looks similar to the beam that we got with our 2019 King of the Monsters Godzilla. But here, it's got that sort of spiral all around it. It might be a new sculpt, which is really nice. So the fact that this thing comes with a beam is... I love it, yeah. Great stuff, great stuff. NECA, if you guys are listening to me out in that digital void of the wider world and the internet, I just want to congratulate you guys. You're doing good. But please make a Megalon figure for us. Please. We need a Megalon figure. Or a Final Wars Godzilla. That would be pretty rad, too. So, yeah, this guy. Loving it. Loving it. Nice chunky Heisei Godzilla. One of my favorite suits. From, you know, the Heisei era. One of my favorite Godzilla movies, too. So, really, really love this. Like, I don't know. My kind of idea has always been, like, I just kind of assumed that maybe they got like an intern to sculpt like these early NECA figures, somebody who didn't really know what they were doing. Then when people looked at this and went, this is shit, they hired someone who knew what they were doing, from like perhaps the 54 onwards. You can tell this guy, based on like the sculpting of the scales here, I'm like convinced it's the same dude or gal, who knows, who sculpted you know, all these other recent ones, like these these two main ones that I keep holding up. So I'm pretty convinced that they got the one person sculpting these, and I wish they would announce who it is, because they only really announce like the people who actually do the sculpts on like the really big major figures. But I wish that they just did them on all of the figures, because that would be pretty cool, and I would love to know who does them. Moving on, let's talk about the 2003 Tokyo SOS figure. So, here's our bad boy here. Looking, again, really nice. This is, again, a design that I'm really fond of. He has a more streamlined design, really spiky, aggressive body, and more of like a wolf-like head is really typical of this design. And also, from this particular film, he does have that massive scar in his chest from the Absolute Zero cannon, or whatever it's called, in Godzilla against Mecha Godzilla in the previous film. So it's interesting they chose this design and not the 2002 version. I think it's 2, because they made so many films in like a really short period of time in the Millennium era, so it's kind of hard to date some of them because they just crammed all those films out in that time. But yeah, I guess they might have done that to differentiate him from the Monster Arts version, because the Monster Arts Godzilla from Godzilla against Mecha Godzilla that they released is one of my all-time favorite figures. And this one looks pretty comparable. Like, they captured this design pretty well. They got, you know, the shape down and those spines. I could definitely see... Well, sorry, my little video camera's blocking his face for you guys. It's kind of hard to format this. But yeah, the scaling on him looks really great. I like the dry brushing. That really helps bring out the scaling. The paint on his claws looks a bit shitty just in these photos here, but, you know, whatever. I can definitely see some people modding this thing to make a Godzilla 2000, because honestly it wouldn't be that hard. It's mainly the face that you gotta contend with. But side view looks really nice, really elegant design, really close to what he looks like in the film. Where's a photo of him that I haven't opened? There we go. There's a nice clear picture. Now, I think all these pictures are taken from a slightly lower angle, so I would like to see one from above his face, just to get a good look at his face. Now, you can see his teeth aren't as sharp or defined as, again, the Monster Arts, but again, it's almost like comparing apples and oranges. Well, not precisely. They're, you know, NECA and Monster Arts do have a lot in common, so I'm not going to make that distinction that huge, but you can still see that, you know, there's still a whole value difference between these figures, and this one looks like it's going to be great. So, oh, what did I do? Oh, never mind. So yeah, basically you can already kind of tell my consent. Here's a nice view of his face in the front here. He looks a little goofy there. His eyes are kind of like a bit messed up. This eye's kind of looking over this way, and this one's like down. So he's got kind of like crazy eyes going on. But he does look nice and vicious, and I do like that sculpt there. I like the touch of the purple on that scar. It's accurate to the film. Very nice. Again, they got the design pretty close. Like, I'm curious to see this guy in person, because even the better NECA figure sculpts tend to look slightly odd from some angles, but these are such an improvement. Like, these two look like they could be the best figures, Godzilla figures that NECA has put out. And I could definitely take the argument that, you know, their Legendary Pictures figures are really decent, because yeah, they're very accurate. But I'm a bit of a classic Godzilla fan, so I love the suits. So yeah, these are great, great. The sad thing is, I live in Australia, and in order to get in order to get these figures in Australia, they take so long to be released here, NECA figures in general. And even when they are, they're so much more expensive, like compared to the price in the US. Like in the US, you can get these for like $20-$25, I've heard. And you can like go into a store like Target to buy them. Now we have Target here. Target doesn't have anything as awesome as Godzilla figures in Australia. Yeah, that's a great looking shot of him. And also the box. Yeah, the box looks amazing. Like, it's a great poster image. You got Mothra and Kiryu from that Tokyo SOS. I just want these figures. Even if the figures weren't as good, I would just get this for the box, because that looks great. Sorry the photo's kind of blurry, but you guys get the idea. So yeah, I was saying, it takes forever till they release them in my country, and even when they do, they're really expensive. They cost maybe like at absolute cheapest, and this is after they've been released for a very long time, and they like discount them. They go down to like $40 maybe. Generally they cost like $50 to $60 if you're you know, buying them at a reasonable cost. Otherwise people just like slug them off at like $80 or $90 if they feel like it. It's really dumb, but yeah, these figures do look like they're actually legitimately worth that. So, yeah, that is my, I was gonna say little video, but I've been talking for quite a long time. So that's my thoughts on these upcoming NECA figures. And like I said, if I were to get any figures from NECA in the near future, like new ones, like a request to NECA, 74 Megalon figure, that was my number one request, because we as a fandom, we don't really have that many options for a good Megalon figure. Maybe a Hedorah, or a Showa Gigan, or an Anguirus figure. All Showa. Those would be the ones that I'd want the most. Now, if for some legal reasons they can only make just Godzilla figures, then I want a 1974 Godzilla or a Final Wars Godzilla. And I think, and I want them to remake some of their earlier figures, like from the ground up, particularly the 84. I'd appreciate an update to the 54 as well, and definitely Shin Godzilla, because they all could use some work. I do love their current 54, I'm not gonna lie, I really like that figure, but I still think they can do better, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's my video, guys. Be sure to let me know which figures you want NECA to make from the Godzilla line series in the near future. What do you want to see from them? And what do you think of these figures? Are you happy with these, or do you think they could still use some tweaking, or any of that sort of stuff? And yeah, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like and or maybe subscribe if you might, you know, consider that, maybe. And yeah, may all your vinyl be radiated vinyl. Over and out.